Hi everyone, today we're going to be solving this problem called daily event count, in which we're given an events table with user ID, event type, and timestamp, and we are to output the daily counts per event type. So as we see here, right, we have user ID, event type, timestamp, and then we have the date, which is just the month and day. We have our event type, and then we have the count. And we know, and we see here, right, that Jan 2nd, so Jan 2nd is missing the it has no purchase, and Jan 3rd is missing view and click, right? No view and click. But if we take a look here, right, these actually show up as zeros. So just because a data is missing does not mean zero. We want to, this is very important in data science because something that's missing still needs to be shown in the final output. For example, in like a dashboard, we want to show that, hey, on these days, no one purchased, no one viewed, no one clicked. Because if we're using this for a training data set, if you're using this for an analytics dashboard, just having missing data is not good. So we want to show that data, and this is where this problem kind of steps up from like a simple group by. So I've listed out some of these assumptions, right? And this is important to keep in mind, and these are things you can ask your interviewer since it's targeted towards the questions. But we can say that timestamps are UTC, events are unordered, which we saw above. There can be missing event types, and we're counting raw events. Okay, so we looked at the expected output, the input, expected output, and the assumptions, right? So let's take a look at I'll change the color here. So this is an example of a naive solution, right? It's important to think of the naive solution because that gives you a good jumping off point, right? So this is the naive solution that most candidates write. And this will return the correct solution, or it won't return the correct solution, it will return a solution, but it'll be reasonable. But if, as I was mentioning here, right, running that will delete these rows. It will delete anything that's a zero and only display these rows, which is not what we want. And most candidates, this is what they would do when they see a problem like this. If you don't spend the time thinking about it, you just quickly write this group by, call it a day, and say this is the solution. And while it will produce an output, there are no syntax errors. This is not what interviewers want. You want to show interviewers that you're actually thinking about it. So this part, right, converting to timestamp, correct. This is good. But like we said, this is where the issue is, where we're creating, not creating complete data set, right? So that's, sorry, converting to date. So this is good. Not creating complete data set. Another thing to note is that dot count does not count nulls. This is important to know because in our input data set, like our sample, right, all of our data is filled in. But if there was a null in the timestamp or event type or something like that, we would still want to count it. But doing this count, right, will not will basically give you, like, give you ambiguity, right? So for this one, we want to use dot size, and that will actually count all rows. counts all rows, irrespective of if it's null or not. And so these are the problems with this naive solution. So now that we have this, let's take a look at what the correct solution would be. So now let's look at the correct solution for this problem. And this is the Pandas solution for this. So as we mentioned before, right, the date, this conversion is correct. This group by is mostly correct. We just have to change this to the dot size, right, from the naive solution. And so the caveat comes from this complete grid, which is basically something called a Cartesian product, but it's just all possible combinations of data. In this case, it's date into time or date into event type, right? So first we build all possible combinations of date, which is just the range from the date min to the date max. And then we build all the combinations, or all not all the combinations, we're building all the values of date, and then we're building all the values of event type, which we can just get from the dot unique, right? So group by gives all the observed data. Complete grid represents all possible data. And then here we're doing the so we're doing the full index, which gives us it gives us the Cartesian product, right? So I'll do the group by and I'll give everything that's missing. And then here we'll do a reindexing, which will, oops, let me try that one more time. So here we'll do a reindexing, which anything that's missing from the observed data or anything that's missing from the all possible combinations, right, from the observed data, we're going to fill in with the 0. And this is the final solution, right, end to end, I guess end to end. And this is what interviewers are looking for a problem like this. So this exact same idea applies in SQL, and I can demonstrate that in a later video. But what we want to do is we want to aggregate first, or we want to convert timestamp, aggregate first, then we want to create a date, time, like date and event type complete grid, which in this case we're using cross join, and then we want to left join the counts and fill the nulls with 0. So the important thing to keep in mind is aggregations delete information and complete grids put it back. So thank you so much for watching and catch you in the next one. Bye.